Okay, so there you go. There's your consensual. Someone needs to be the voice for Zoom because it's that sound is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. We got to change that. Yes, Tim volunteers as tribute. We love to see it. Hey, everybody, come on in. Welcome to Edge Studios Ask Me Anything session here in the thick of June. I'm in the Midwest right now, and we had a heat wave where people lost power. And I'm here with some young little babies who we had a night of no AC, sleeping when it was 85 degrees at night. So it was really thrilling, and I don't wish that on any of you what I just went through. Yes, Terry, I didn't think I would get to see you today. Welcome, welcome. Everyone, I am so happy to be here. I know I'm sort of, David is kind of down to the wire, and I have made him co-host, but there he is. David, how you doing?
Hey, hello, everyone.
Welcome, welcome. Great to see you. Okay. Mwah, mwah. Everybody, you're great. So here we go. We're joining the group. We got David with us today, our Chief Edge Officer, and joining us in the chat is all the people. Hello from Atlanta, Midwest. Yes, indeed, Michael, the hot lands is true. And Tony, I'm all over the country. I cannot be traced. I'm like Carmen Sandiego sometimes. One of my friends was like, I need an app to know where you are. Oh gosh. Okay, Victoria, damp and cold. Come on in. All right, just letting everybody in. Y'all, so this is Ask Me Anything. If this is your first time, welcome, welcome. The way this is gonna work is you can view here we are on Zoom. You can view us either in gallery or speaker mode. You can change that by the little view button in your top right corner. And if you're in gallery, you get to see everyone's beautiful faces in home studios and living environments. And if you're in speaker mode, then you get to see mine and David's and Dan's face. And frankly, they're good faces. So, more power to you for that. Either way, we are so happy to have you here. The chat is how we're going to communicate and interact. And we like to make a lot of jokes in the chat, so please feel free. And we also ask all of our questions. It's the place where you just ask questions about anything and everything, voiceover, and I will facilitate and bring them over to our team. And I say team today because we have a guest star, and I'm super pleased that he's made the time to join us. He is a good friend of mine and a good person in general. His name is Dan Friedman. Dan, how are you doing?
I'm doing very good. Thank you for that Van Halen intro, Shraban. That always for me.
It works perfectly, and your lighting, as always, is just so. It's just home studio dream, goals here. We've got nice.
I got new lights, actually. I got new LED lights made by Monster, the same company that makes the cables. And they were like $13. And I happened to just walk by them and they were there. And I'm like, these are amazing. And they are amazing. Now you can see my face and I can still have my blue lights on, and it's, all good.
And it makes you have almost like a purplish tone to that blue, which I really enjoy. Nice. And in the gallery mode, it contrasts nicely with Howard's like pink light. I mean, it's just looking good, y'all. Your lighting is it's an important thing, especially on the Zooms. And Howard, hello in tropical England. Yes. Great to see you. What's up? Okay, so here we go. Can't send. Oh, interesting. Oh, let me check on something with the security settings here. So you can chat. You can. Okay, great. I've removed the ability to share the screen as we do. So welcome, y'all, and thanks for being with us. So Dan, it's wonderful to have him here because he is our home studio specialist, or some might say expert. And so I want to encourage you all to target your questions as much as possible towards home studio things. However, as per always, we can't get super specific to your home studio space or say, what's the best mic? Like, it's really something that depends, but we're happy to get into whatever feels, to explore your questions and answer them to the best of our abilities. But as always, when we have a guest star, I like to start out with a little bit of just a kind of little bio and introduction to our voiceover artist here. And Dan has done many things and continues to do many things in his life. And Dan, if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about how you got started in voiceover and where you are now, and how home studio became something you actually enjoy. I know a lot of people get stressed out by it. So Yeah, can you give us the lay of the land of your journey?
Sure. I've been in this business for over 22 years. So I started back in 2000. Before that, I was actually in radio and audio engineering. I've been an audio engineer since 1995. I wrote in 2010, I published my book, Sound Advice, Voiceover from an Audio Engineer's Perspective, which I wrote because I wanted to help talent with their home studios, and home studios were really just starting to explode at the time. The great thing about that book is that it was just recently named one of the top 9 must reads for voice actors by Backstage Magazine. So that's kind of the premier acting magazine certainly in this country. I don't know about the world, but so the fact that it's been around a while and the fact that it's still mentioned that way is the greatest reward I could ever have gotten. So that's pretty sweet. And now I'm mostly focused on voice coaching. I have been doing a lot of voice coaching for people, performance coaching. I'm a Roger Love certified master coach. So that is what I just accomplished that last year or this past year. Well, a few months ago, really. And that's what I'm doing now. And I'm working on another book.
Amazing. And yes, congratulations on I was just saying in the chat, we love to see press and Backstage talking about your book as an essential is a wonderful thing. So great. So thanks so much, Dan. And I'm just going to jump right into it. And everybody, you can just drop your questions in the chat, or you can DM them to me. And you can also feel free to tell us how sweaty your studio is this month as a general prompt. I'm really curious as to hear who is burning the most calories just by sitting, So from Rusty, here we go. I have a question for Dan about power conditioners, if I can ask it. Living in Hungary, my power is 220 volts and it fluctuates quite a bit. All my equipment is bought from the US, so it was 110 volts, requiring me to use transformers as well. I've been told a power conditioner would really help to cut down some noise I have. Can I get Dan's thoughts on this?
Sure. And I really don't know anything about power outside of the US, so I can't speak to that specifically, but a power conditioner is always a good idea, but you don't want to get just some cheap power strip. You want an actual power conditioner. And now they make them with backup batteries and things like that. Actually, my power conditioner apparently can take a pretty good strike of lightning, which is good because I've actually had lightning strike a tree in front of my house before and blow my dog fence right off the wall. So that was pretty interesting. It also blew my friend straight to the ground because he was about 20 feet away from it when it happened. It's a great story, but I'll save it for another time. But yes, a good quality power conditioner is definitely going to be helpful always, and it really helps to protect your equipment too if you get one with that power surge protection. So yes, I would definitely recommend it. Plus, it allows you to keep most things all kind of plugged in together, and with your audio equipment, that's really helpful as well. Eliminates other opportunities for buzzes, noise, and things of that nature.
David, any extra thoughts on this?
No, none at all. It's funny because as Dan was speaking, I kept thinking, oh, I can throw in this other thing. And then Dan, you said it. And then I thought, oh, I should throw in this next thing. And yeah, Dan's answer is spot on, obviously.
I love a solemn, confident, no, I'm good from David.
Yeah, But I felt like I needed to back it up with some more stuff because I don't want to leave everyone with a one-word answer. Like, I don't care. I do care, but his answer rocked. So.
Exactly. Wonderful. Okay, Rusty, good luck out there. And everybody, working globally, it's wonderful to hear about your experiences and the things you're learning, as well as the challenges that you're facing. So Susan's asking this, and I'm actually curious about the response. But so Dan, if you hang your mic, should the mic be above your nose or below it? Does it matter? How does this impact, plosives, etc.?
Sure. So that's 3 questions in one. The first question is, The first answer is maybe. The second answer is yes. And the last answer is no. No, I don't even remember the last question. No, really. So the thing about hanging the microphone, so there's a theory, and it goes with tube microphones especially, is that a tube microphone has a vacuum tube inside, which is basically like a light bulb, and it generates heat. And they turn the microphone upside down so that the heat will dissipate upwards and not affect the diaphragm of the microphone. That's the theory anyway. Whether or not it really affects a microphone is, I mean, the heat is pretty negligible in general, but we do tend to leave tube microphones plugged in all the time. So at any rate, that's the idea. Now, yes, will it affect you based on its placement? Yes, absolutely. Closer, further away, it's, it might be more nasal. If it's up here, it might be more chesty and throaty if it's down here. As far as plosives go, you really just have to be cautious of the fact that you're not going to speak directly into the mic. You're going to talk past the microphone, just like I'm talking past this microphone here, the 416. And that will help with plosives. And you have to adjust your microphone based on what's comfortable for you, but also what's comfortable for the script that you're doing. If it's something intimate and close up, then you're going to be moving into the mic anyway, more than likely. And if it's something that's really loud, you're going to be moving away. Mic positioning is not something that has to be static or stationary for everything that you do. In fact, it probably shouldn't be. So pay attention to what your script is saying, and then also understand how that will relate to the microphone as far as it being like a lover's ear. So the technical aspects of no plosives and things of that nature, that's a separate thing from an emotional standpoint, but you're always moving your mic around to adjust your sound based on the read that you're doing and those things.
I have a number of add-on thoughts. So first of all, the concept of tube microphones is, I think, true too, because we used to hang them upside down, but none of you are using tube microphones. So if you're not familiar with how or what type of microphone you have, what the innards are of your microphone, it is not a tube. That I can pretty much confidently say. None of you have tube microphones. They're beautiful microphones. They're wonderful on horns and saxophones and certain instrumentation, but and certain voices too, for singing especially. But they are very rarely used in voiceover. Dan, I only know one, possibly two voice actors who use a tube. What about you? Just anecdotally.
I honestly can't think of anybody right now who is using a tube microphone. And if they are, it's definitely not an inexpensive tube microphone. It'll be something very, very expensive, probably in the 5-figure range.
As it is, yes. The next thing to know is with mic positioning, as Dan's saying, it should change. But I could give so many examples of reasons why to hang a microphone from the ceiling and reasons not to. Sometimes it's out of your control. If you are living in an apartment building and the floor rumbles because there's a subway underneath or loud people underneath, then you may not want to have your microphone base on the floor unless you have rubber feet and cushioning below it and so on. And sometimes the ceiling may vibrate from something above you. There are so many variables to consider. You need to always consider the kind of script you read, or even the length of the script you read, because guys, if you're recording a script that is multiple pages long or fills an entire screen of text, what that means is that as you're reading off of your script, your head is changing its angle. In other words, as you start reading at the top of the page, you might be looking up, and by the time you look down at the bottom of your screen or printed page, if you print it out, your angle is changing, and that is very important to think about when setting up the position of your microphone relative to your mouth. And then, of course, it also depends on the kind of microphone you have, how direct it is, and there's just a lot of factors. Dan's first answer was, it depends, or I think maybe Dan, you said maybe, and none of these things that we talk about today hold true for 100% of you. Everyone's studio is different. Everyone's voice is different. Everyone's goals are different. The way they read is different. So you need to think about the things that you need to think about. That's something we can help you with. And that's a private session. It has to be, because they're just intricacies that we need to take into consideration and say, you know what, for you, the mic should be hung, or it should be based on the floor. And for you, it should be positioned this way. And some people don't have an issue with plosives. Some people do. So lots to consider.
lots to consider. And as always, I encourage one-on-one time if you're really feeling lost, and just being able to work with Dan here at Edge Studio to just go through it with you and look at your placement and your settings. But these are good questions. So thank you, Susan. From Chris. Okay. What sets, we'll start with Dan. What sets an expensive $500 to $1,000 interface apart from a $100 one?
Yeah, sure. Sometimes it's really just the number of inputs that it has. You don't want to record a drum set with only one microphone or two microphones. You probably want to do it with 8. So a lot of times it might just be the number of inputs. Other times it might be the converters inside that are especially pristine or more pristine than a less expensive one. Although I will say that no interface that you're going to buy that's of decent quality, so we're not talking like, you know, a $10 interface, if they even exist, I'm not sure, but certainly if you're buying a decent quality interface, like for instance, the Universal Audio Volt is a new product that came out by Universal Audio. It's $139. Universal Audio is a very reputable company. So it's one preamp, but it's one very good preamp. And that interface is going to be just fine for you. It's going to have converters that for voice won't make a difference. The whole thing about, you know, more pristine converters for our voices, it doesn't matter so much because we're capturing what exists in our voice just fine with whatever we're using at a lower level. But if you get into recording a symphony, or if you are recording a Stradivarius violin or something along that nature, then certainly you probably would want to use the absolute best, most pristine thing you could find. How much of a difference will it make to neophytes and people who aren't listening on really great speaker systems? Probably not much difference at all. However, that's why you would have a more expensive interface. Is it's usually for the number of preamps, or it's for maybe the bells and whistles that it has inside. For instance, Universal Audio, for their Apollo line, you get additional processing, compressors, reverbs, things that I would use in production uses. Whereas the simpler interfaces may not have those things. But the most important thing I think to be looking for in an interface, besides the quality of the preamps, is does it also come with a DAW that you can learn? I think that's a really important thing to be looking at. One of the things that I love about Steinberg and Yamaha is that they all come with Cubase typically, which is the DAW that I use. So I like their products in general because they're always good quality, but because it's a DAW that I use, if somebody out there comes to me and they says, well, I am using a Steinberg and I'm trying to learn Cubase, then that's great for me because I can totally help you with that because I've been using Cubase for over 20 years, or its sister program Nuendo. If you're using Audacity and things of that nature, that's also fine, but it's nice to have an interface that does come with at least a nice DAW that you can learn down the road. But typically, so those are the reasons why one would be more expensive. Additional preamps, better, higher quality converters, which again isn't really an issue for voice actors, and more computer processing capabilities. Those are the typical reasons.
I think we should define for everyone what a DAW is, and that is digital audio workstation. That's the program that you use to record.
Which used to have been your tape machine. We used to take this thing called magnetic tape. It had, I know it's crazy concept, just to try explaining a record to somebody. But anyway, there was this tape and it actually could capture, you know, magnetic particles. And in order to make edits, we'd have to cut it with a razor blade, take the part out that we didn't like and tape it back together. And let me tell you, that is way different and way more scary than using a DAW where you have unlimited undo. So
I appreciate our vintage vibes here with our old school. Yes, the good old days, says Micah. Wonderful, Dan. Thank you so much for your responses. David, do you feel anything you want to add, or you feel good about this question and convo?
I feel good. It's incredibly seldom that I throw in a personal story, but I will throw one in. My 14-year-old son is now into records out of the blue. He's buying records. We got an old record player. It's really cool. Very fun to see.
Does
I love that.
does he want to buy some old 80s hair bands? I've got about 40 of them right down here.
No, but I took out some of the old albums that were recorded at Edge Studio on record. And so we're able to play those. These are records I haven't heard in 30 years or so. So it's been very fun.
You're probably happy about that.
Oh yeah.
If anyone wants hairband records, I'm sure Dan's wife would be happy for them to be out of the out of the house.
This is the man. She doesn't come down here.
Hey, my wife won't get rid of the old mixed cassettes. We have a batch of these things, and I keep saying, "Come on, we don't even own a cassette player. It's collecting dust in the house." And but these are like her babies, you know.
I have a cassette. I recorded Paul Schaefer in the world's most dangerous band playing with Stanley Jordan, the jazz guitar player at the University of Florida band shell. And all I was using was my girlfriend at the time. She had like a little handheld cassette recorder, and I got the greatest recording. I've got to put it on. I've got to digitize it before it just, deteriorates. I haven't heard it in years, but it's an awesome show. And
That's
the
cool.
quality is pretty remarkable, actually.
Send it when you're done. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I know. I gotta get on it. All right. Well, more questions, Siobhan. Throw more questions at me.
I got you. Since we're here, we're on story time, and so I'm gonna take Michael's question. And he said, for the panel, which I think I would love to actually see participants respond to this for themselves in the chat. All of our people here, but I'm gonna start with David on this one. Michael's question is, when did you realize that you were finally past the amateur and imposter stage and actually felt confident as a professional? And I know David's, journey from like essentially garage recording to having a Times Square studio, but David, did you have an imposter syndrome at the beginning? And what made you realize that or feel that you've hit a professional level?
Yeah, I definitely did in the beginning. Well, almost the beginning. I was recording bands in college in my dorm room, and I never felt like an imposter then because I was learning, and the bands I was recording, we were all learning together. It was the summer after I graduated when I actually advertised Edge Studio. I came up with the name, bought the domain back then, and yeah, I definitely felt like an imposter. I had no idea what to charge. I had no idea what to do. So. But I'll tell you one thing that I think is encouraging for everyone is that 34 years later for me, I still am improving. When I coach someone, a voice actor through an audition, when I help them when I listen to their demos and remark on, what we should keep and what should be changed, and so on, I still feel like I get better. And I continually feel that. And I continually look back even just a year ago and I think, you know what, I could do better than I did a year ago. And so it's been gradual, but confidence, I mean, I feel confident now, but maybe I shouldn't, because next year I might look back and think, you know what, I wasn't as good today as I will be in a year. I think that the lesson here is to not feel a lack of confidence. I think you should always feel confident and offer their clients the best that you can do at any given moment. That's critical. And a side note to that is that if you don't feel confident in your voiceover work or whatever work you're doing for anyone, then I think you're going to sound stilted. You're going to hold back. You won't be vocally free and you won't sound as good. So you should feel confident and know that you should know that you're doing the best you can at that given moment for a client. And never let the imposter feel come off. No matter how imposter-ish you feel, tell a client, like, this is what I do. An example of that would be when you really are sort of new to voiceover. You've gone through coaching at Edge, hopefully through Edge, and you've worked with Dan on your studio, and you've worked with our marketing people and your coaches, and you put together a demo, and then you hit your first client, and you're concerned because they're going to say, well, what work have you done? Back up, we heard your demo, you sound great, but can you back it up? What have you done? So many new people will then lose their confidence and say, oh, well, I am really brand new. But why not kind of change your story around and be confident and say, you know what? while I don't have client experience, I've worked hard at this industry. I've trained with these 7 different coaches through Edge Studio, and I have trained to the point that I can reproduce what you hear on the demo. So if you like the sound on your demo, rather on my demo, that's the sound you're going to get. My microphone is this quality. My studio is that great. I've had it approved by Edge Studio, and speak confidently. I think that that goes a very long way, not just with clients, but also with agents that you might reach out to at one point in your career, and anyone you deal with.
Thank you, David. I love that. And it's, yeah, a lot of good advice there along wrapped into the story. Dan, I'm super curious for you about your experiences in imposter syndrome and how you felt about it.
Sure. Well, life is a journey, not a destination. So we're always traveling. We're always learning. I just took a 2-year master coaching program in voice. So, I'm learning to play guitar right now. I never, believe it or not, Van Halen fan, everything. I picked it up when I was 12 and I just went all about it wrong. And I never picked it back up again until a year and a half ago. And now I don't put it down. And I'm actually learning to play this instrument, and I understand it for the first time in all my life, and I'm super excited about it. So you are always learning, and to tell you the truth, when it comes to voiceover, confidence is the common thread in every read that we do. Every delivery is about confidence, because imagine if you're playing a character who lacks confidence. You're the actor who has to portray that character confidently. So it's the one emotion that I don't allow anybody to choose as this script is about confidence, because they're all about confidence. So when we talk about what a script is about, things of that nature, confidence has to always be there. So there's, obviously in the early days when I was an audio engineer, that was probably a little bit more stressful, because first of all, when you're doing live sound, you are in front of anywhere from 3 to 30,000 people maybe that are watching you, and they're wondering why the show hasn't started yet. So that is a very stressful situation, I can assure you. I've sat on top of subwoofers soldering cables for people as an audience watched. I have been this close to showtime, being late and not figuring out why my monitor system wasn't working, only to realize that I forgot to turn the power amps on. I have the very first time I turned over my system to another engineer who came in to mix for their band, I asked the engineer to please put all the settings back to the way they found them so that I'd be able to start my next show. I mean, that's how green I was. I was greener than a frog's ass. So talk about nerves, right? I've made all the mistakes. So, as far as this being in the studio, I've never felt a lack of confidence, because once you've been in those situations, there really isn't a whole lot that rattles you in the studio anymore. You just take your time and you work your way through whatever problem or issue you're having. And that's really the same thing with your scripts too. Take your time and really understand them before you start reading. One of the biggest problems people have is they don't take any time to look at their scripts before they start diving in and performing them. And they don't even know what they're saying, really. They think they do, but they end up just playing with the words.
And likewise,
Right.
to that point, sorry, Siobhan, just a quick interjection. I'm sure you've all seen bloopers on TV. You see famous actors from TV shows and movies, and this famous actor, who evidently is well-trained, well-experienced, probably confident, they make the same mistakes repeatedly sometimes, to the point that it becomes funny. So funny that they're on national TV, maybe international TV, showing off their mistakes, and they laugh about it. And that is the mindset that you should all have. And I guarantee there will come the time that you are in a recording session with a client. The client probably won't be live. That doesn't happen too often these days, but through Zoom, through IPDTL, through some other connectivity software, you'll be speaking with a client, and you'll stumble on a word repeatedly, 3-4 times in a row. It's going to happen. If you break down, start sweating, start apologizing profusely, you're going to make yourself more nervous. You'll lose more confidence. And then it's a very, very hard, you have an uphill to climb, because when your voice is nervous, it just doesn't sound good for many reasons. Dan and I could, and Siobhan could write a book on that alone. So it is critical that from the onset of an issue, you maintain a positive stature. Blow it off, say to your client, make a joke, it's like, oh, geez, you'd think by now I'd be able to do this. Well, let me try again, and laugh at it. The clients will feel much more confident with you, and you will sound better when you ultimately get through the recording.
I definitely see this. I was writing in the chat a little bit about how I think I'm sort of transforming and rethinking the way that we think about these things as it is. So for me, it's very much about like, can I take this imposter syndrome and transform it into an understanding of myself and the opportunity I have to grow. And to David and Dan's point, is like you're always to see yourself always as a student and always capable of learning, I think opens you up to feel a little more comfortable with your nervousness. And for me, certainly when I am nervous, I try to see it as like exciting and good for me. It's good that I'm nervous because it means I'm trying something that I don't think is easy or comes naturally to me, but that makes it super worth it. And as you continue to expand in your career, you'll continue to do more and more challenging things and hopefully get a variety of different voiceover roles. And then you're recording a demo for a genre that you haven't really specialized in before, right? And like, as we continue to grow, there's always the opportunity to feel like an imposter or to see yourself as an evolving human. And so Michael, thanks for that question. It's awesome and it's valuable because being a voice actor is not easy, which is why I really, I flinch when people are like, oh, but you could just do voiceover. Like you could just, like it's something anyone can just do. So thank you for that. And thanks, David and Dan.
Yeah, I was going to say, Siobhan, too, you said that this is not easy. The reason this is kind of tip of my tongue right now is because I had a mentor of mine pass away this past weekend, and he was my acting teacher, and he had a phrase about acting, and it was acting is simple, but it's not easy. And voice acting is also simple, but not easy. And that's really comes to the crux of what we do, right? So just also remember, this is not life and death. We're not saving lives typically with what we're doing. So there's nothing where, it's not something that you should get super stressed out about. Just go in there planning on doing the best job that you possibly can and then follow through with that. And if you have mistakes along the way, remember, nobody's going to prison as a result, and nobody's going to die as a result. So you'll be okay, and you'll get through it. There are much bigger problems in the world than whether or not you're stumbling over a word.
Yeah.
That's super. That is also very important. The perspective in general is really important. So I'm going to turn this into a two-parter. From Dina, she says, I apply a stack to my edited audio and it really makes it pop. Is that sound subject to trends? On how would we know when it's time to restack? And I'm going to like dial it back and say, Dan, can you tell us what a stack is and what's Dina talking about here?
Yeah, so for stack is something that people create for that voice actors so that they can process their audio in a certain way. So this is the stuff about adding dynamic compression, equalization, maybe maximization, limiting. There's a number of different processors, so many that I won't even get into the effects type ones, but creating a stack is using these processors to I'll adjust the sound of the audio so that it ideally sounds better, or broadcast ready, as is what we tend to call it. So I've got a couple things that concern me when it comes to stacks. The first one is that every single read that we do is not the same. Therefore, you can't just rely on one stack. You need different stacks for different things. So that's an important thing. If you're just relying on one, that's not going to help you if your read is really quiet that day, because it's not even going to touch the compressor, right? It's not going to help you at all. So there's things like that. So you would really need multiple. My feeling about stacks in general is that I would much prefer that you learn how to use an EQ or learn how to use a compressor so that you can do it, because I individually process every audition that I do. I don't use the same processing for every audition. In fact, I start from scratch and I do each one individually. But, I'm old school. I'm used to twisting knobs and pushing faders. It's not a problem for me to do it quickly. I understand why people want to use stacks. And if I'm doing music, it's a little bit similar, because in a way, with music, it's nice to start with presets oftentimes, so that it may not be the final thing that you land on, but at least it starts to give you some quick ideas as to where you want to go with something. So these stacks are the equivalent of that for voiceover, and just know that these different reads require different processing. So ultimately, while you may be using stacks now, don't be afraid to go ahead and play around with the same stuff and figure out how you arrive at things so that you can learn what you're doing.
Thank you, Dan.
I do want to throw in one quick thought, something that has come up in a lot of Ask Me Anythings. If you have drastic settings on for a particular recording, if possible, jot it down. If you change your microphones for a client for a particular script, make a note of it, because it's not uncommon for a client to call you back a year later and say, hey, we'd like you to re-record just one small portion of a script that you recorded the previous year. And if you have the same microphone hanging around and you have a general idea of where your levels were, it's a good starting point. It's a very good starting point. And granted, your voice will be different a year later. You may be speaking differently that particular day, but it's a good starting point. So again, just keep note of what you can.
And really, any processing should be so minimal anyway. The idea is not to alter the sound of your voice. The idea is to just adjust it ever so slightly so it just sounds a little bit cleaner or a little bit better. We can use processing correctively, or we can use it creatively. And it's far more fun to use it creatively than it is correctively. But a little bit of a little tweaking here and there, just to, highlight something that's nice or remove a little something that's not so nice, that's muddying things up, that's fine. But it's not these, we should not be drastically using our settings unless we are doing music or some kind of crazy production that it requires true alteration of the sound.
Thank you both. Thanks, Dina. I love having Dina here, y'all. Did you get your coffee yet, Dina? Was it delivered? Because I haven't seen. Not yet. Okay. So from Ted, what is up, Ted? He's saying, do you recommend having an expert set up our audio chain in our digital audio workstation using our microphone in our recording space for audio that is delivered to clients?
Well, yeah, that's kind of goes back to the stacks thing. So yeah, I mean, you can do that. Again, I really feel like most of the time, unless the client doesn't know what they're doing with the finished audio, then I would always lean first towards just providing your voice on your microphone in hopefully your great sounding room, and start there. Because the clients often are going to be doing post-production work, and you don't want to do anything that's going to hamper them from making it sound the way they want to sound. It's not really your job to be doing the production side of things most of the time, although I do know that is, they're expecting so much more of voice actors these days, including that kind of stuff, making things sound broadcast ready. But ultimately, once you've got the job, most of the time, those types of situations are going to be handled by other people. So make sure that whatever you're doing, that you can still provide raw audio with no major issues.
Word. David, anything?
Yeah, it's funny. Just earlier today, a voice actor, an audiobook narrator, emailed me, and she uses one particular microphone, which is pretty common in our industry, an Audio-Technica microphone, a 2020. And she said that she had met a musician over the weekend, and they said, that mic is too dead. You shouldn't use it. And he recommended a different microphone, which really colors the sound a lot. And she asked for my advice on it. And I wrote back and I said, I don't advise it. because that is not giving the client your true voice, your raw voice. Like Dan is saying, let the client decide how they want to color your voice. It may depend on their particular ears, maybe the music, the track that they're going to add to it. There are lots of considerations. And so true audio, raw audio is terrific.
Do we feel good about this subject? Because I feel, yeah, good. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, y'all. And from Bill asking about Dan's thoughts. Bill says, I recently heard a sound engineer say that voiceover talent shouldn't use pop filters. He said pop filters are only necessary if you speak directly into the mic, and voice talent, as Dan already mentioned, should never speak directly into the mic. So no need for a pop filter, but I was surprised since I had never heard this perspective before. Dan, what's your thoughts and feels?
Sorry, I need to interject. Wait, Siobhan, can you find out if he's referring to a pop screen? Like when he says pop filter, is he talking about just the black spongy thing that typically goes over the microphone that touches the microphone, or like a pop filter that looks more like a frisbee, like a disc with a nylon in it? Or is he referring to everything?
Okay, the pop screen, but how is that? Now I'm a little bit confused. How is that different?
So the terminology is we typically call this a windscreen, and this is a pop filter. So
okay.
The terminology difference. This right here is a pop filter.
I'm spotlighting Dan. Okay, so that everybody can see. So that's the filter, and then
this is a windsock or a windscreen.
Okay, and David, that's what you're talking about, right? Those two things.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I kind of used different terminology. But yeah, so I only clumsied up the matter here. But the point is that there is a difference in sound quality between the two. But I'm sure Dan can take it from here.
Okay, so Bill says yes, pop screen frisbee. Dan, can you take it from here?
Yeah, I don't care what works best for you. That's what I say. I mean, who cares if you use a pop screen or not? If you're getting plosives and it helps you, then use it. Most of the time, they're best at keeping spit out of the microphone anyway, more so than protecting plosives. I mean, the best thing about to deal with plosives is to have proper microphone technique. So that's where that goes. But if you use one and you like it, more power to you. If it makes you more comfortable, gives you a sense of security that feels good, or that it is in fact helping you, then by all means use one. And if it doesn't really affect you either way, then don't. Again, nobody's going to ask. No client will ever ask you, did you use a pop filter on that? Never. It's never happened in my 22 years.
Yeah. I guess it sounds like the engineer in Bill's experience was maybe just saying like, there's one less thing you could buy, but David, any thoughts or feelings on this subject?
Yeah, well, certainly some people are much more prone to popping than others. Some people have better microphone technique than others. And I've known throughout the year, and different microphones are more prone to picking up pops and not. And so between the combination of someone who naturally is prone to pop, they have a microphone that is pretty prone to picking up the pops. I feel like a tongue twister here. In these situations, the something to help them may be necessary especially if they're not good at equalization and processing them out on the back end. I have found over the years that the windscreen, or I think he called it a sock, Dan. I have heard windscreen, but sometimes they're so thick that they do a tremendous job at removing all semblance of low end, including pops, but they leave the voice sounding a bit thin. And it depends on, of course, on the thickness of the windscreen. So I've found over the years that if you're using anything, the filter, the round frisbee shaped disc, sounds a lot better than a windscreen.
Yes,
and significantly so in some cases.
And in other cases, as we like to say here, it depends.
It depends.
So,
yeah. Mic placement is, is critical, and the way you speak the words is critical, and yeah, a lot of variables on this one.
From Jillian, I have Adobe Audition, and I noticed, which is a digital audio workstation. I noticed there is an amplitude statistics category, and I was just wondering if you can briefly discuss what's important to look at with your amplitudes. Dan, can you tell us what amplitude statistics, what is that? And how do you, what's good about it, Dan?
Yeah, think about it as loudness. Think about it as loudness, because that's really what it is you know, amplitude is how loud something feels or measures in your DAW. I don't use Adobe Audition, but basically you don't really need to pay much attention to your average amplitude throughout your audio. Just focus on getting good levels, which really is when you are speaking into your microphone and you are reading your script as you intend to perform it. Make sure your levels are achieving somewhere around -12 to -6 on average. That's what you want to be reaching for. Don't go above digital 0. Try and maybe peak around -2, -3. And don't be recording your audio way down at like -28 or -30, because that's just not good quality and it's not good recording practice. So don't worry, you know, people want to get wrapped up in a lot of these stuff that just, it's minutia that will never affect you. I have never been concerned about the amplitude or overall amplitude of any audio file that I've used, because it just doesn't matter to me. It's not part of my creative process. And as long as the levels are good and I've got a good clean sound, that's what I'm mostly focused on. And that's for music too. And music is much more involved. So, you know, your job as the recording engineer is to just capture the sound with the highest quality that you can. So when you're wearing that hat, record with good levels, make sure you've got good mic placement. Don't worry about minutia like overall amplitude levels, because nobody cares and you shouldn't either. And yeah, that's really what you need to focus on. The other stuff, you know, if you want to be geeky about it, that's fine. You can do that, but you don't need to be focusing on it when you should be focusing on your performance and your script and making sure that you're getting a good delivery. The only recording aspect that you have to worry about at that point is your mic placement and proximity, the sound of your environment, and are you getting good levels? That's what you should be focused on.
Love to hear it. David, any thoughts or feelings on this one as well?
No, you know, we have a production department at Edge, and thousands and thousands of voice actors who we've hired from home studios. We've never asked them once, you know, about their amplitude. Same thing. It's just not important to us.
I'm going to start now, just out of spite.
Yeah.
just to give us all one more thing to do.
Exactly. I'm going to make it the next big thing.
Great. You can give a TED talk on it. It'll be amazing. From Bob, he says, a question for the legendary Dan Friedman. I'm going to be on the road for over a month. Oh, okay. I'm interjecting right here. And I'm going to say, if people have a travel setup, like you get in your car and you do auditions a lot, or something you pack up to do in a hotel room, if you would let this girl know, because people are asking for a home studio show and tell. They're asking for people to display their travel setup.
I wrote a whole blog on this.
Dan, would you join a home studio? Do you have time? I'm going to send you an email, but people want to know, they want to see it and they want to experience it. And we feature voice actors on this show and tell, and it's what people want to know. So I dropped my email in the chat, but this is very exciting because it sounds like a question. Bob, you're in the right place because he wrote a whole blog on this. So, okay.
So I have a blog on my webpage. You go to the webpage, you go to the blog, and you look for an article that says something along the lines of what I took with me on my summer vacation.
Okay, so we need to talk about the show and tell, but here we go. Dan, portable VO booth or pillow and blanket fort. I've used the second, but never the first. And what's your feels?
Pillow and blanket fort, definitely. I'm all about the pillow and blanket fort. Because first of all, if you bring something with you, you're lugging something around with you. And if you have your car with you, you're already lugging something around with you that is an excellent recording space, because your car is actually probably going to be, first of all, often it's people's best set of speakers that they own. Number one. Number two is your car is, especially modern cars, are really well insulated to keep down road noise. So they actually also happen to be quite good recording spaces. So usually I'll jump in the back seat of my car, park in a quiet area. I actually had, there's one voice actor who I know goes to the local cemetery because she wants it to be that quiet. I don't go that far, but yes, go quiet space and record from the back seat of my car onto my laptop.
Talk about dead sound.
That's right. Good. That's well played.
Yeah, another great thing about recording in cars, and by the way, I know two voice actors who their full-time studio is their minivan. The kids have grown up, they're out of the house, and they keep the minivan. Instead of selling it, they keep it in a garage. Between the soundproofing of the minivan and double insulation of their garage, they have it set. And then a great thing about the cars is that they're all the angles, right? There's no standing waves that are going to occur.
Yeah, and a lot of absorbent surfaces.
Yeah,
I worked
they're
with a voice
terrific.
actor who actually had a voice booth set up in the middle of her camper. So she actually took it all around the country with her. And the opening part was the part that you drive, and it had a little kitchenette. Then it was a big ass voice booth that filled the middle. And the only way you could get to her bed was to go through the voice booth. It was rock solid. And she would go to campsites and, you know, use their hookups for power and do her gig. She traveled around for a couple of years like that.
Dan, do you cover the car windows when you record in a car?
Usually it's not really so necessary, but you can certainly cover the one that's closest to you. If I usually tend to kind of sit in the middle, because I'll have my computer maybe on one side of me, and like the microphone tends to sit really nicely on the center console from the front seat. And because I'm in the back seat, I'm not getting so much windshield stuff because of the seat rests and everything. So that's what I do. And then of course, usually if I'm traveling in my car somewhere, it's probably going to be a beach type place, just because other places that I would go to from here, I guess I wouldn't really care. I guess I'd fly, but anyhow, so I'll have blankets, towels, things like that in the car that I keep anyway, because I got a dog, Eddie Van Howlen, and I know everybody's half the room melted right there. Eddie Van Howlen, that's just too great. Anyhow, so I could put those between the seats too.
It's an important moment has come in this Zoom right now where I am launching a very important poll. And the question is Van Halen or Van Hagar. And so it was asked in the chat, and I think I know what it's going to be, but it's, you know, it's just really important material for us to be covering here.
I've got several answers to this. just as long as we're goofing off like this. Let me just say that first of all, I met Sammy Hagar when I was 12 years old. 14 years old, something like that. Anyway, I met Sammy Hagar, and I met him when I was a child, or a teenager. So this was long before I started meeting rock stars as part of my work. So, you know, but the fact that he spent 10 minutes with my brother and I outside of their hotel with his wife at the time and his 2-year-old son, and just chatted us up for like 10 minutes. I just have to say, Sammy Hagar is by far one of the nicest people I've ever met in this business, by far. That was pretty special. So I do absolutely love Sammy for that reason. Now, as far as Van Halen versus Van Hagar, now I've seen both versions. David Lee Roth is an incredible songwriter and certainly a great showman, launched 1,000 careers thanks to his efforts. Sammy Hagar is no question a better singer. And he's still going at 70 some odd years old. Now, Here's the caveat, though. First of all, Gary Sharon doesn't come into this because I even though I met Eddie about that time, I'm not going to consider Gary Sharon because that was a lost year in Van Halen's history as far as I'm concerned, because it just wasn't a great album. But that's another story. But here's the thing. The most important singer in Van Halen is none of those people. It's actually Michael Anthony, because he was the sound of Van Halen's backing vocals. He had that high-pitched voice, and he is the sound that you are familiar with when you hear Van Halen's vocals, even more than Sammy Hagar or David Lee Roth or Gary Sharon. So who is it? It's really always been about Eddie. And it doesn't really matter who the singer is, because it's been about Eddie, and Mike Anthony is still the most important singer in Van Halen, regardless of who the lead singer was. Boom.
And with that, my friends, with that mic drop, obviously we kind of knew it was going to be what it is, but there's 5 people in here who made a choice in the minority. And so I just couldn't help myself, because that was in the chat. And I was like, you know what, they're riffing. Let me goof off a little bit. I want to do one more question here, and as we wrap this up, and I think we can do it quickly. And it's we've had this question before, but I want to hear it from Dan, because we haven't heard this from Dan in a while. But from Susan, Dan, when you send in an audition in an online casting site specifically, but let's say maybe in general, how much should you process? Provided the noise floor is good, how much are you focusing on breaths and plosives and silence between sentences? How much do you do? Let's hear it.
Yeah, minimally, but certainly enough to get out anything that distracts from the message, right? That's really what you want to edit out, anything that distracts from the message. So maybe you don't want to edit out all of the breaths, but certainly any that are going to take away from what it is that you're trying to communicate. Mouth clicks, errors, all of those things, of course, you're going to take out. And that's part of processing. And as far as, like I said, EQ, compression, any of those things, if you know how to use them comfortably and effectively without overdoing it or ruining your audio in any way, basically, again, just use them very sparingly, very minimally, just to kind of give it a little polish, but really no more than that. You always need to sound like you. That's the most important thing. So yeah.
Wonderful. David, any final thoughts on the age-old question about processing auditions?
I'm still thinking about Sammy Hagar. I feel like he should have been a third option in here. Van Halen, Van Hagar, and Sammy Hagar.
Oh boy.
Now, processing auditions. Here's the thing about processing auditions. You do need to make sure that you match your competition. I don't even like that word in our industry, but if you submit an audition, which is at a significantly lower level, a volume level, then it probably won't sound as good to the casting team, because for whatever reason, louder sound makes people think things sound better. So two voice actors with the same quality vocal performance, and one submits an audition at a full level being -6 dB, and the other is -20 dB, then probably the person who's at -6 is going to get the job. So I think the most important thing is the levels. And Dan spoke clearly about that earlier. And it's true down to the audition. It's critical to have that full level.
Excellent. All right, my people. So here we are, just like the time has flown by because we have such a good time. It's always a very good time with my friend Dan. So quickly, I just want to drop some things here in the chat. If you are new and you haven't trained yet in voiceover in any way, we do have our Investigate voiceover class that I highly recommend you drop into. We offer it in person in New York and LA, as well as online. And it's a 3-hour class that gives you all the ins and outs and things that you need to know about this industry. If you are like, oh my gosh, Dan is so charming, his dog's name is Eddie Van Halen, I just gotta spend some more time, please book a session with him. He's obviously a joy and he knows a lot of things, and you will feel very smart and empowered when you are done. Check out our class schedule for upcoming things. We've got some good stuff coming up in July that isn't officially announced just yet, but as of Eddie Van Halen on Instagram, as of this point in time, we do have some good, our free programming continues Next week, we are featuring Terry Briscoe and Kim Ingram on Wednesday, the 22nd at 8:30 p.m. in our home studio show and tell. And Kim did volunteer as tribute for beginner setup. So y'all have a treat, and we brought it to you, and Terry is just amazing. So join us next Wednesday night, and then the following Thursday, that's June 30th. David, the month will be over then, which is wild. But David and I alone again here at the same time doing our Ask Me Anything with y'all. And otherwise, I just want to say thank you so much. If you can just drop some love in the chat for Dan. He joins us on his time as a gift to us here today. So, and the dog is gorgeous. This is a really perfect looking dog. So Dan, thank you for being with us. Any final words from you, Dan?
No, good luck. Breathe through your nose. And yeah, that's a little tip there.
A little pro tip.
That's it. Yeah. Reach out if I can be of help.
David, any your closing remarks for today's session?
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to work with Dan. You can get in touch with him through our office. Ask anyone in our office how to reach Dan. He's just it's comforting, and you will have more confidence in your overall auditions, your performance. If you work with Dan, get your studio, make sure your studio is up to par, and so on. He's great. I thank you, Dan, so much for your help.
Thank you.
And your assistance, your advice, your suggestions, your ideas, your thoughts on this stuff is brilliant. Siobhan, as always, you're the host with the most. You're awesome. And a huge thank you to everyone out there listening. You guys rock. You're giving up time, your own time, to better your voiceover career, and that's impressive. So thank you.
It's super kind and wonderful to have you all here with us. And additionally, if you want to save the chat, that's going to be the ellipses in the bottom right of your chat square. And you'll see when you click on that, the top option says save chat. So you can keep it just because we're funny and hilarious and charming. And so you should save that. And please do definitely sign up for coaching with Dan. And see you all again, hopefully at the show and tell next week. Dan, from me personally, thank you for saying yes. And this is the third session. It's our third year of doing these, and you're here with us every year. And I personally appreciate you so much. David.
Never said no to you.
Boom, there we go. That's the way, guys. I didn't tip him to say that. That's the real thing. So thank you. Thank you all so much.